So we're recording.
So, yeah. And, okay. So I might not need to necessarily do much else there.
I'm grabbing a tool.
There we go. And can you stash your GTM on there? Okay. So just a little bit of background about me. I have my certifications up there. I'm an instructor, but I'm more or less declarative rather than a programmatic developer. And in the fall, internally at Blue Wave, we do some internal presentations for folks of things we noticed in the previous year. And what I had noticed from the declarative side was how much more people are using Process Builder for better and worse. And Process Builder is a difficult animal to troubleshoot. I don't know if anyone here is really familiar with Process Builder, but anyway, so I put together a deck to talk about all the ways that Flow so really outdoes Process Builder in terms of error handling and these other things. So we went through all of these highlights of what Flow can do. And unbeknownst to me, then the Spring 18 roadmap became more clear. And Spring 18 brought with it some things that were really interesting for Flow. Really the first time that Flow was given a lot of love in, say, the last 5 years. So that led Barry and I to start having a conversation about some design trade-offs. So I just want to remind you all of the lower part of the automation landscape and the declarative side of house for the things that are unrelated to code. And all the way at the bottom for your declarative administrators, you have these things like workflow rules and then more recently Process Builder, which raised to a more robust tool and so on, based on the fact that Process Builder is really just Flow reskinned, a little bit more simplified. So Flow always inhabited this area, about midway between what was all the ultimate power you could hope for on the platform and something that was in the realm of declarative developers as well. Well, what happened was Spring 18 came out. I don't know if anybody was paying attention to this, but when Spring 18 came out, they found a way to plug Lightning components into Flow and in other ways incorporate Flow into Lightning pages. They made you wonder about this new space that was appearing where Flow was becoming much more powerful and able to address things that ever before, say even a release before, would have always had to be code. So we started to explore this and the design trade-offs of doing this with a client or a few projects that we've been working on that are completely Lightning UI based. So I just want to take you through kind of the basic requirements, something really easy that we can then chew on, right? So we have an org that we set up, which was a training environment. Anybody can go and sign up for one of these, and it's tooled up with all that great data, Sales Cloud data, and so on. So here is just a basic requirement that everybody's probably come across something like this before. In sales, you have existing clients. They're frequently reaching out to sales rep at our pretend company, AW Computing, by phone, and while they're on the phone, they want a fast quotation. These are existing customers for upsells, things like this. They want a fast quotation. So our current process for opportunity creation and then subsequently to quote creation, it's too time-consuming to complete that on the phone. It's making them look bad. They're not able to respond in real time and get the information you need while they're on the call. So big impetus is that we could start to explore the ERD and figure out how we would solve this problem, say previous to Spring 18, and then how we would solve it now. Does everybody understand the underlying requirement? It's not a particularly difficult requirement, but let's take a look at the underlying ERD here, right? So we have the idea of, and slow me down just a little bit if you need to. I'm assuming everybody's fairly comfortable with these standard objects and things, right? So you have opportunity and opportunity products, and when you're doing quoting, you have to kind of mirror that. So you also have a parent-child relationship for quote line items, and then we have this other stuff over here too that an end user in the UI has to worry about. Choosing the right price book based on the customer, finding the right price book entry based on the currency, finding the right product based on human intelligence. Putting all of these things together, well, doing that on the phone is very time-consuming. So if we pretended that what we were trying to solve is that we wanted to respect their current customer and account's currency, we wanted to respect the industry value to let that inform our price book. And then we wanted to allow reps to enter in line-level discounts, which, by the way, discounts sit here. So you have to tool up all this other stuff first before you can get here. Prevent and validate it, that'd be nice. Significantly decrease time to enter all of this data so that you can get it done in the first few seconds while you're on a phone call to get your quote back. And oh, by the way, can we make it mobile friendly? Well, everybody's probably in this room thinking, all right, that's a visual force page I'm going to have an Apex controller, I'm going to have a helper class, and all these other things, right? That's what folks are thinking in the room, right? Okay, so just a couple of other design considerations. As a part of doing this, no matter how we would solve this problem, we're going to have to address the required fields and any other standard and custom validations. And as a quick review for those of you who, if you are a little more unfamiliar with this baked-in opportunity quote synchronization process, it's been a while since you've had to deal with that. You can only have one quote synced to an opportunity at a time. The reason you would do that is so that the pipeline before testing is up to date, ringing any bells. Right? So it's a nice to have. The sales rep doesn't want to have to do that if they don't have to. They want it to be done, so they can just start writing the quote, the pipeline's up to date. Okay. Questions? Just wanted to quickly stand up something, a problem that everybody kind of has seen something similar to before. Okay. So let's take a look at what flow can do all by itself. So this is just a, anybody can sign up for these training environments and it's got great data. So we can just get right to work designing. Okay. Just a little bit. So here in Lightning, we're going to go to an account. Any account page. This is the Lightning page. So what we've done is we've modified this Lightning page just a bit. And we've added a tab where we've embedded flow. You've been able to embed flow for whatever a year, at least in Lightning. So here's our flow. And if you haven't seen a flow in Lightning Runtime, has anybody seen a flow in Lightning Runtime? Yeah, okay. So there are some really nice things that happen when flows in Lightning Runtime. For instance, it subsumes the aesthetic of Lightning and so on. It respects standard field behavior, so you automatically get date pickers. We can represent pick lists without having to recreate those pick lists. If you have currency fields, it respects some of these cool things that you would have to completely recode in Lightning components. You put in, 10K, and you tap to the next field, and it completes the order. If you put in 10B, turns it into billions, and so on. So those things are nice when people have to work in large numbers and they don't want to waste time to write out those zeros. So all of these things happen automatically in flow. We don't have to tell it to do these things.
So one question, what happens with the lookup fields? With the lookup fields?
Yeah, what happens with that?
Because there's a limitation which we saw before that lookup fields usually comes with a drop down here that doesn't render as a
right.
field here.
That has not changed.
Okay.
That has not changed.
Okay.
So as compared to, say, a Visualforce page, in a flow, the way you would handle that is you put in your search criteria, and on the subsequent screen you would show a collection of matching results that you could choose from as a drop-down or something, which is what you're probably envisioning.
Yes. Yeah.
That has not changed yet. Okay. Not changed yet. So what we have here, the flow is embedded. So from the Lightning page itself, you can pass the variable, the record ID, directly into the flow, so that the flow is already responding to the ID of the record that we're on, right? So the flow knows we haven't done anything yet. And the flow is able to read that the account's currency is USD. We didn't have to have these things on here. I just exposed them so you could see some of the variables that are already set. We know that they're enterprise based on the industry of the account, not being a nonprofit. So all we have to do is manage the couple of required fields on the opportunity record to get that put in place, fire that DML so that we can go ahead and start writing our quote. We've also got the standard related list down here in the Lightning page so we can see as we compile quotes. Okay? So if I click next, this is my only other screen to the flow. And what's happened here is that I've gone out, if you remember in the ERD where I have price book entry, and product, I've gone out and I've done a query and flow on the price book entry table to make sure that I'm respecting what it's driving from my price book and only within the currencies that I can sell to this account dynamically. And I'm returning the products that are in that price book. And just for some additional help to the end user in selection, I'm returning the value as part of the same field. It's a formula field, matching together helpful information. Okay? So I choose a couple of products. I want to choose a laptop. Maybe I'll sell 15 of them. Maybe we're running a discount 15 for 15, so I'll put the discount on as well. Now this is going to stamp into the quote line item field, right? If I want to continue selecting, I have this auto set to true. So I'm going to put in those 15 laptops. I should put in the laptop sleeves as well. So there's laptop sleeves, 15, and discount, say 15. I'm done selecting products, and I'm done. So here's my 2-line item quote. I can go over to the quote, and let's see what we've done here. So I already created the underlying opportunities to be represented on the pipeline. I've synced this quote to the opportunity. I've stood up the products, and we're already ready to send the PDF to the customer while we're on the phone if we wanted to. So we've avoided about half the screens of the standard process when you're navigating through the UI. Okay? We've got our quote here. You can see the 15 for each of them. You can see the discount. You see the individual items and so on. So we're ready to go. Bang, we're done. Okay? Not yet, we're done. So I want to show you one more thing that's still just flow. Let's go back to account, and let's render this as if it's a mobile device. Just reload this. Well, it's a bit small, so bear with me. All right, so let's see if we can find an account. All right, so now we're on a different account, and we're on the go. And I use an object-specific action, launch the exact same flow. Recognize anything?
Yep.
I want to add products. You see how I have fewer products because this particular account was GBP? So I had a more limited set of products available to sell on GBP. So it's dynamically pulling the proper products. So I'll sell a desktop. I'll just sell one desktop, no discount. I'm done selecting products. And I'm done. And there you go. So if I go over to the related for this account, here's my one quote that I've just created with one line in. And from a mobile device, I've got my quote, everything's set up. If I scroll down here, I can see my subtotal, my total, and everything. So from a phone, that was what, 2 clicks? I just created 4 records, synchronized them together, and I'm done. Okay? All right. So that's just a couple of the things that you can do in Flow that you couldn't do before. Passing variables, launching a flow from an object-specific action so that you can dialogue with flows without Visualforce pages from a mobile device. Yeah. So if you weren't aware, there are some really compelling things. This is just some of the highlights of what love has been given to Flow just in spring 18. Okay. So you can incorporate, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, Lightning components directly into FlowScreens to make FlowScreens much more dynamic and robust. You can override default headers and footers of FlowScreens. You can track progress, so you can put something very similar to sales path within a flow so people know where they are in the process of finishing some business process called JavaScript directly from your flow with local actions. Upload files, something that previously might have been a pain. Now we can upload files. We have an action where we just drag it onto the flow canvas, and then you can contribute files to something as a part of your process, and do that from a phone. Upload images, and that's mobile ready as well. Launch flows as sub-tabs as a part of the Lightning console, so that we can start dialoguing back and forth with folks who are using console. Now we've seen this one work in action tonight. Launch a flow from an object-specific action, start flows dynamically from Apex, and so on and so on. So we'll get a couple more of those in a moment. One of the things I just wanted to show you, if you haven't had eyes on it before, I'm going to break my flow so that you can see what the error messaging looks like. This is why I hate using, say, when you just use, and you'll chime in here later on, but when you're just using Lightning components to replicate some of the behavior that we've seen down here tonight in Flow, your error messaging is much more mythical. It's much more difficult. Whereas if you use Flow and you haven't seen these error messages in a while, when you get these error messages, they're so detailed that it's quite quick to figure out what's gone wrong. So I'll give you an example just of an error message. And then I'll hand it over to Barry so he can show you what we can do with Lightning components in Flow. All right, so I'm going to go back to this account here and show you what I'm going to break. So in my fast quote here, my quantity. Now one of the things we know is that you have to provide a quantity. It won't accept null, it won't accept 0. You have to have a quantity of 1, so how do we handle that in Flow? I'm going to change this to a 0. So you can enforce validation rules within your flow screens. I know folks have seen this before. I'm going to turn that validation off so that the flow breaks and we get an error message.
When you show the flow canvas, can you point out some of the more common elements that you use to put together a flow, just quickly?
I'm happy to point those things out.
Cool, yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to deactivate the current version that has the validation, activate a version that doesn't have validation. Right.
Validation on the flow itself.
Yeah, I can, and I'll show you what that looks like. So within the inputs on the flow screens, you can actually write formulas to validate the inputs.
On the screen itself. And
Yeah,
does it respect the validation on object level as well?
It does not. So you would have to recreate those, say, validation rules. In this case, it's actually a validation within the custom visual for screen that Salesforce authored, where you add products that prevents you. So it's not a standard field validation or a custom validation that you've authored. This is something that Salesforce bakes into how you add products, just to prevent people from adding a zero line in.
But it still respects the field level validation. For example, if you make anything mandatory, so does it still respect that?
Yes. So here you can see a field that's mandatory, and I didn't put this red asterisk here. So yeah. But in terms of if you had any custom validation rules,
Oh, I got it.
yeah. So I've reset this so that it will break it. So I should get an error message here. Yeah. Okay, so it's broken. We know why it broke it, because it just tried to insert a line that had a zero quantity, not allowed to do that.
A lovely error message too.
They're a little better on this side. There it is. Okay, so we can see here, right at the top, I mean, we can go through all the elements of this transaction, but the very first thing, we have a field level integrity exemption because the quantity must be non-zero, done. We know what just happened. But we can read through the rest of it. You can see everything that's happened here. So we can go down, we have all this great, this is not some custom error message that I had to like put together the content and body of. This is just the standard error messaging for Flow. So we can see what's fired, who was the user who was running it, the start time, and so on. And as we go through it, we can see what's happening. So first it looked into the account, because I passed that information in from the Lightning page. It shows a price book. It's doing all this behind the scenes. We've got this initial screen where we enter our opportunity information. And then you can see when we get down here, we're entering our product information. So we've selected a product, and you can actually see the quantity right here, value at runtime. Yeah. And so it goes to the bottom, and then it tries to insert, and it has a problem. So we get to the very bottom, we create the opportunity.
Kind of better format of the workbook.
Yeah. Okay, so that just gives you an idea of the error messaging that is in Flow today and how it's helpful. So we could also show an error message once we plug in a Lightning component as well. Okay, so I'll go back to the canvas just for a moment.
So all administrator of the org will receive this message.
Yeah, that's right.
The one who actually has activated it.
Is it the one who's activated it?
I think so.
I think it's the one who was
Last modifier.
Last
That's how
modifier, yeah.
that
Becomes the owner.
Modified or activated?
Huh?
Modified.
Last modifier.
Okay. So if I just open this up really quickly.
Can we actually modify and activate an activated version of Flow? No. So ultimately, whoever has actually modified it or activated it.
Yeah.
If
Same value.
I think if you deactivate and activate it again, then you will receive the email, no matter whether you have. It doesn't
It wouldn't
really
make
matter.
sense.
You
That
have
wouldn't
actually
make sense.
indirectly modified it by activating it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It is nice to look into this canvas because related to how we handle Lightning components, we make minor changes, but otherwise the flow is intact. Let's see if this will work.
Good old Adobe.
So is it a kind of Flow designs screen you're showing, right?
That's right, it's
Yeah.
the canvas. Let me see if I switch to Classic if I have more joy.
We have heard that this is under construction in Salesforce to turn it to HTML5, so it will look like Lightning. Our guess is that it will look a bit like the process builder, a little bit when it's done. But right now it's based on Flash. That's why it has issues sometimes in loading.
Yeah, probably we need to.
Yeah.
Do we know flows run in system mode or user mode?
So flows run in user mode, respecting sharing. If you want them to run in system mode, you need to launch them from something. You either need to launch them from Apex so you can tell it to run in system mode, or if you launch it from a process builder, it always runs in system mode. So there are a few different options to kind of tell it, hey, by the way, system mode. Yeah. So I'm having an issue. I don't know if it's the GoToMeeting itself or something, because I was on here earlier tonight. See if you have any joy.
But can but what happens when you launch through Apex or through a process builder? Are they like flows that they shouldn't have screens? Or
Right, headless flows or auto launch flows. So these would be processes that are kicked off but don't necessarily have any user input. Yeah, now if you wanted to take user input and stick that somewhere and then fire a headless, you could do so, right? So take in user input and then call a separate process which is in system mode.
Okay. Because I remember that what there is to use possibilities because of this was one way to have more flexibility than both those.
Yeah.
One that don't have to write code.
Yeah.
And I think that initially flows don't have this capability of headless flows.
Yeah, well, what some people say is an advantage of Process Builder is also a disadvantage because Process Builder ignores sharing. So if you have complex sharing going on and you use a Process Builder to violate that sharing, that can be a problem. So this is the flow that we were running. And you can get a quick look at this flow. You see what's happening is first it's creating a nest object from the account based on the ID we're passing from the page. And it's making some quick decisions. It's choosing a price book, which takes us through those assignments. Then we get to the initial screen. There are only those two screens. The initial screen gives us the opportunity information. Then we pull the price book. The next screen gives us our first product, and then we enter into a loop. So we're doing product selection here. If the product will subsequently have another, then what we're doing is we're adding it to a collection and we're continuing. So we're going to iteratively do this until they tell us to leave that loop. This changes just a bit when we incorporate Lightning. So we'll show you that difference when you incorporate a Lightning component. Then when you're done and you get through all of your selection, I don't know if you can scroll down just a bit, there's not much more going on down here. We just have to create the things in the right order, as you would expect. So you're creating your opportunity, you're creating your quote. We're going through the collection and updating the collection with our new record IDs. Once the collection has everything it needs, then we're inserting the quote line items and we're syncing into the opportunity so that your pipeline and everything is up to date. Okay? And if we want to go back up to the product selection screen, I can quickly point out how you do those validations. I could also point out how you do those dynamic product selections.
Where do you want me to go?
Yeah, so this dynamic choice for price book entry, where I'm actually going out and doing kind of, a software query and then returning it as a, simulating a pick list of the results. But if you click on quantity and you scroll down here, it's really simple. You just say, you know what, I want to apply validation and real complicated stuff. But there you go. And you have your messaging, and that's all returned within Lightning Runtime. Here's it's all part of the same framework. Okay.
What all data type it support?
What kind of data type?
What all data type like text? Does it support emails also?
Yeah, you could validate on an email field. So you create a text field, but you apply a validation such that it's always in an email field.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm assuming that it's all can be saved to the source file. I mean, for a history tracking for programming perspective. If you change something in the complex screen, I changed something 2 days ago, how would we compare our changes?
Absolutely. Well, if you're changing it, even if you're changing it to scratch order, I don't know if you want to bring up flow without leaving the screen, but anytime you change a flow, especially if the flow's already been activated, you are always versioning. So we just made a couple minor changes and we have 15 versions of the flow. So you can always see every kind of a change tracked that way.
In the metadata, there's two different elements for flow. There's a definition and a version. So all the versions are separate files, but the definition is a file by itself. So you kind of bring both of them now. But I pushed up definitions to a Scratch Jorgan that work fine. There's no issue with that.
So do you want to take me through what it looks like, the exact? So what we did is we took that same stack, and now we've incorporated a lightning component, which is something you couldn't do before Spring 18, to change the UI.
Yeah. But pizzas are hot, so let's go get some pizza,
Yeah,
and then I'll show you a bit of code. Not much code, but a bit of code.
Would you be all right if I disconnect from the GTM then?
Yeah, sure. You all know who I am. I just put this up some new and stop. That's all. So I wasn't actually meaning to talk when you were doing flow. When we started this 3 or 4 months ago, as Jorgan said, a lot of new things happened that were quite interesting with flow. So I have a new badge, application architect, recently, and a very shameless plug. Just became a Pluralsight author eventually, after many edits. So there's a course on Pluralsight where I talk through the kind of things I talked through at a session I did here last year and year before about prototyping like the components and making good solutions. So it's a 3-hour course. You can get a trial for this and try it for a month and go on the course. So have a look at it. Now, this next month, by the time we have the Imperial night, it'll be a 2-year anniversary for me. It'll be 2 years ago was the first time I ever taught a Lightning Components course. It was in Germany. The course was out of its depth. All you could do with a component at that time was add it to Salesforce 1 or make a very simple Lightning application. Nothing else. So it's quite a course. And since then, the course has exploded. And when we teach the course, there's about 8 units to it. The first couple of units are introducing you to concepts of making a component, pretty simple stuff. And then the last number are about more advanced stuff. But there is a unit in the middle, unit 3, where we talk about where we can surface a component. And it's just the unit that changes all the time. And it's probably the most interesting unit in the course. And whenever I'm teaching the course on, let's say, a company location, I would invite the project manager and everyone to come in to listen to that unit, because it's not a lot of code, but it tells people where they can surface a component. And it's all down to interfaces, hopefully. Has everyone done a component? I've never written a component before. Everyone? Never written a component before. Okay, I like a component before. I'll show you some code in a few minutes where you'll see it. But a bit like a Visual Force page is an Apex page. Like at the top, we have an OR component tag for each component. And we can add interfaces to our component. Now, interfaces sounds very programmatic. But all interfaces do in Salesforce and Lightning is allow us to place a component in certain places on the platform. And also we get certain values or attributes added to a component by default. That's what it means. So when we started, even this was actually not at the beginning, this was summer 16 where we actually had available for record pages and that kind of stuff, and available for communities. Then in the last 21 months, we got some more to do with quick actions and getting a record ID and using action overrides and lots more, where we can actually define templates. So when you make a Lightning app page, how many columns to the left or right, we can organize that. We can also use, which is new as of winter last year, we can add extensions for composing and rendering messages in Chatter, and also looking for pre-chat UI. So Chatter, homepage templates, adding to home pages. So for example, if we had a component with this particular interface on a home page, we get the record ID. So it's automatic. Okay, so the interfaces do a job for us. But a new one, this is actually from winter 18. When we talk about flow before spring 18, this is kind of much what we could do with a Lightning component flow. We could add flows to Visualforce. We have been able to for quite a while. But this is from Winter 18. We can embed a flow with the lightning flow tag. We give it an ID. And then what we do is we simply just find that flag and flow and just run it. Flow data is the name of the flow. So the do init at the top is like your initialization that you have on any web page or whatever. This runs when the page renders. It's running our action C init. And this runs and we can start our flow. So pretty rudimentary. And before you showed us how to just use a publisher to show a flow natively, this is how we would have done a flow in Winter 18. We made a quick lightning component and made it available to an action and it just ran a flow. So putting a middleman in between.
Sorry, what's your flow? Start flow, my flow, what is it? Just title or?
Yeah, my flow is the name of the flow. Yeah, my flow data is what you find. I think my flow is the name of the flow, as far as I know. But there's not what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about something else. Okay? Because this was a band-aid. We really wanted to help flow. Okay? When I talk about lightning components, what I'm always talking about is we should never have to replace what administrators do. If making a Visualforce page for me was always a pain, because something couldn't be done with the setup menu and we have to replace it. We're getting in the way. And it's always better if we can add pieces onto the jigsaw and let the normal stuff work. So an administrator's gone to the process and done it with lightning page layouts, and they come back saying, oh, there's something I can't do, we got to replace the whole thing. And from now on, you'll go back to the developer and replace it all, change it, maintain it.
It depends how your Visualforce is organized. It's all based on apex detail, subsets,
Exactly.
kind of similar logic.
Similar logic.
Yeah.
Lightning is made of blocks. So we can now place blocks in lots of places. And now one place we can place a block as a string 18 is inside the flow. Okay? So we can implement a new interface called Lightning Available for Flow Screens. And this allows us to make that component available in Flow. So we're going to show you a screen input in a minute. Like we showed you a few minutes ago, Jorgan had his fields. We can now add not just fields, we can add a linked component. Components that are available to us are the ones that you can add. And you can implement multiple interfaces at the same time. So you can go force record ID, comma, available for phone. You can add lots and lots and lots. Okay? And as far as I know, it doesn't affect performance. Okay? So this allows us to add a component to the screen element in the flow. We can pass variables from the flow into the component and back again. Use this if we couldn't. I'll show you that in a minute. Every flow screen has got a help text. We can get that as well. Okay, so we can show that in our component. And we can also get a handle on the available actions. And this is a cool thing about it, because there is an attribute available from that interface called available actions. When you make a flow comes with actions from it. Jorgan had a previous and a next on his flow. There's also a done and a pause. So we can detect in JavaScript on our component what is currently available. And not show those footers. Because to show your flow footer, you got to tick to show the footer.
Yeah.
We can untick it, not to show the footer, and we can put our own footer and we can override it. Okay? So it's kind of nice how you can do this, and you can make flows much more powerful. So this is adding, sorry, that's blue. You can add a lightning component as one of the elements. We just showed you this live on the canvas, so I can add a lightning component. When you do the unique name, you just put in a unique name. With the lightning component, you drop down that list, gives you the list of components with that interface. And then you can add inputs. Okay? Now, how these inputs are available is to be designed in your interface. I'll show you that in a second. Okay? But we have inputs. So Jorgan has, this is his collection and flow of his line items he's going to make. And this is a variable that we've now introduced in a new version of this flow because I didn't like the tick box. I wanted someone to press a button to say I'm done now, not to untick tick box because I think you can make a mistake. So I wanted to make that change. And you and I reordered the flow a little bit, but it code-wise was quite simple to do. And we're basically passing over the collection Jorgan is building and whether to continue or not. And then I'm able to tell it on the outputs what to send back. It's almost like a syncing effect. So the components can operate on those variables and the flow picks up those changes. Okay? So first things first, how do we actually get these variables into our component? Well, like we use in app builders, we use design attributes. So in the design area of our component, we can add design attributes. These will always relate to an attribute in our component. So an attribute in a component is like a variable in Angular, whereby if I change a value of the attribute, it reacts to the rest of the page. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. So if we want to feed information as attributes, we can use the design. And then if we add that to the app builder page or in various different places, we can specify what those values should be. In this case, these become available to the flow. So that's why you see colons and this particular variable. That's what we had here. Those are the variables that we had in our design, and those are the variables we're passing back and from to it. So it's like a way to pass them back and forward. And we now have our attributes completed, and we can mess with them. So I can write a button to delete certain items, add them if I want to, and the flow will pick them up. It reacts on who clicks next, kind of thing. So if the flow, let's say the flow's got its own buttons, and we have buttons in our component. If the flow adds a line item, and then I add a line item, and it adds one, I delete one, the last one is kind of 1, so you're left with 3, not 4. So it just goes by the way the user uses the flow. So we're not really interfering with the flow today. So the available actions, I'm going to show you a demo of this in a minute and go through some code, but I'm going to give you the highlights of the code at the minute. So these are the different available actions that we have. These are the different attributes that are available out of the box. So I don't actually have to define these in the component, they're available already. So the available actions is an attribute of list of strings. It's basically telling me what's available. So if only next and previous was available, like yours, that's all I get. But if a finish is available, which is the last element of the flow, right down here, or pause, which means that there's a pause available to do something and we can trigger it. So we can pick those up. Navigate flow allows us to run a command that we can tell an attribute, go to somewhere, run next, run pause, run previous. And a screen help text allows us to get the help text from the screen. So this is how the available actions work. They come in, and this is some JavaScript I've initialized in a subcomponent. I've made a particular footer component, I'll show you in a second. What I'm here is I'm basically looping through all of the available actions. So it's the component.getVita available actions, that's given to us from the flow. We didn't have to define that, it's already there for us. Loop through them and I can see, okay, is one of them paused, then I'm setting other attributes that yes, I can pause, yes, I can hit next, and I'll show buttons or I'll change buttons depending on what I want to do. Get the idea? Okay, so we're able to pick these things up from the attribute. And navigating the flow, I said it's pretty straightforward. We're getting the vNavigate flow component, which is the first line there. We're giving it an action name, just a piece of string. We're saying navigate this component. So navigate to next, navigate to previous, navigate to finish. It moves on the flow for us. So we're not changing how the flow works. We're adding some functionality and then moving the flow on. Okay, so we're not getting in the way. Okay, I'll just show you a demo of this now. You have to help me with this. Okay. So what we did was, everyone can see that, yeah? This is Jorgan's quote, and this is a different account. I'll move to a different account, like. Need a US one, I suppose. Acme, New York, why not? And there's no quotes here at the minute. So this is Jorgan's flow, and I haven't changed his flow. I made a new version of his flow. I've kind of copied it, and I want to work with it.
One thing to point out, just while you're still on that tab, we could decide on the Lightning page whether or not to give the flow screen an additional attribute, which is a 2-column layout, and it'll just divide everything up as necessary. Once we wanted to implement components, the Lightning components within the screen, you want to go to your other tab there. In order for those components to have room to grow, we had to take it back to a single column, which is kind of a activity note. But otherwise, those components have to fit within the 2-column, and it really wasn't great based on the way we wanted to use it.
So I'm going to try going into flow here. I still laugh at this because I'm not used to it at all. Okay, so I've got another flow called Lightning. Okay, it's sort of rearranged. I'll get you to talk later on about why we rearranged it a little bit. But I just want to show you the screen selection and what I added. And I'll show you the code just to show what I did in the last few screens. So here is the product selection. This is what I'm changing. I'm not actually changing much else. So I'm just going to go in here for a second. Okay. And what I've done here is I went in effectively and added a field. Let's close some of these. And I added a lightning component. And when I double tap on the lightning component add, it's here. I tap on the lightning component and I can start setting it up. So I can give it its name. I can select any components I have that have that interface. And I can set some inputs. Okay, that's roughly what we can do. By the way, there's a little trash can there as well. You can get rid of them. This is the one that we're using. Manage code items. This is the one I showed you a minute ago. I'm using a component, which I'm going to show you in a second what that is. And these are the different attributes that we've set, just like I had in the screens. So in the code, my main component is here. It has the design. Looking at these two design attributes. You'll see the labels here is what's presented to the administrator on the flow. They'll know what they are. There's the component, and I have my two attributes. And I'm free then to do things with them. So what we wanted to do was make the flow better. And what I didn't like, being the user that I am, I didn't like having to untick this box. I just wanted a kind of a more intuitive way to use it. The other thing that it's missing, that you brought up, was that Jorgan's flow adds products, but you've got no idea what you've added while you're in the middle of adding your products. Wouldn't it be nice if I could show them products being added and maybe being able to give them a way to remove them without moving on? Okay? So this is what we created. So the start of it is Jorgan's flow. This is the same flow that Jorgan had pretty much. I click on next, and now you can see I've added my component here. My component here is this little table. You guys see that yet? The top half is Jorgan's screen. Is the screen he created. So he can go and select products, and I can add quantities here, give a discount of 5.
So it's all existing, your existing logic.
Yeah, I haven't added, this is not a component. This is purely the screen. The component's at the bottom. Okay. And what I can do is I can click on add product. So I have no checkbox, I'm adding my product. Click on add product. And what's happened there is that Jorgan's flow has worked. His flow has added that product to the collection, and my component has picked that up and has simply displayed it. Simple as that. It's like the input coming in. Okay? Let's add another one. So I'm going to add a second product, solar keyboard. What the hell is a solar?
So like if technically somehow you would add the first product on the first screen, it would be available on the first screen.
I actually haven't left the screen. Because Jorgan's flow, when you add a product, it goes through a process that checks to see, am I finished yet? And I, by default, said I'm not until I've told it I am finished. And it's come back to the same screen. But what's happening here is only that looks like it's changed as a component. We actually haven't left the screen. The component is just working with it.
your initial screen, when you set a date or something.
The first one you're setting up, the price books, yeah, that's the exact same as Jorgan's. We haven't changed that at all. It just is single column. That's the only difference. Let's add a second one. I'm just going to add this product in. Of course, I can keep adding products in here. But now I can go and I can remove one. So I've added a remove button. Now that's working is, remember, quote line items is the list of the line items. And I have simply made a table. And here I'm iterating over those line items. So let's go into the sub line items. Quote line item. Yeah, inflow. I haven't got it open. I should have it open. Quote line item inflow. There you go. Singular, not plural. Okay, and this is pretty straightforward. It's using Lightning Design System to get the actual product too. So I can get the name of the product, because what you're going to storing is the ID of the product, and his line items are, his product line items are kind of like, I don't get those as an input, so I might want to grab them. So I'm taking the ID of the product 2 from the line item because he's defined that already. And I'm taking that and I'm just displaying the fields. Some of these are taken directly from what Jorgan has defined. Jorgan has defined a quantity, he's defined a unit price and discount. This is all part of his flow. He's just got an assignment for this. But I've got the name of the product, just to show you that I can do it. I can get the ID of anything in that data services here and grab information. My JavaScript to remove an item is simply calling some JavaScript. This JavaScript, okay, so what is this doing? What I'm doing here is I'm setting a variable. This is a little trick in Lightning Component development. There's a number of ways components can talk to each other. The most common everyone knows is an event. Right? So component events, application events, there's lots of ways you can do it. There's a little trick way. what I'm doing here is I'm defining an attribute in my child, just to explain what I'm doing. So I have defined, remove line item. So I have remove line item here. Initially it is blank. What I'll be filling in here is the ID of the product I'm going to remove. This in turn gets inherited by the parent, because you can see here I'm just passing it through. When you delete it on the child, the parent knows the attribute is changed, it reacts to it, and it will delete it. And when I delete it, then it's actually calling something. So in my handler, I'm waiting for a change in that line item, calling a controller method, and that method is actually deleted directly. So I'm not deleting in the child, I'm deleting in the parent. And usually in CRUD operations and components, that's what you should do. There's a number of ways you can do it. You can pass a function through, you can use a component event that's using an attribute. It's 3 different ways, really.
So everything is happening in the database. So the
Actually, correct you, it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
It's still on the memory. It's never into the database.
Effectively, what Jorgan's flow has created is a collection.
Yes.
And when that collection is passed to my attribute, which is here, I have defined it as a list of code items.
Yeah.
Okay? Purely in memory. As far as you developers are concerned, it's a JSON array. That's what it is, a JSON array.
Yeah.
And what I'm manipulating is a JSON array. And it's only when we click done, or in Jorgan's flow, we untick the checkbox. That's when Jorgan's flow makes the line items. So we, in theory, and I actually tried this, we could make a JSON code line item here and add it as part of my component, and it will get sucked in by his flow and created.
Basically, this attribute is referring to the flows list.
It's kind of syncing to it a bit.
Yeah,
so if I remove or add JavaScript to the collection here, the flow will know when it goes off and does its next action. So I can add 15 components in here, which I actually tried. One of the first things I tried was to do that. It's not in this solution, but I bound in 15 line items. It just a pure JavaScript, and it made the quote with 21 or 2 line items. Yeah. So I'm just manipulating the JavaScript, because that's all the flow is waiting for. Just be careful with your fields and define your S-object type in the JavaScript, but it worked. By the way, we've all this code in GitHub, so you get there's a link at the end. There's a number of resources. Don't worry about the code; you'll get that. Okay.
There's another question. When we started, initially you said like we can't pass or we can't access any variable, flow variable from the Lightning component.
If it's passed to us, we can. There is a limitation. There are certain types of data types that are not supported, and you would have to make sure your types line up. Okay. Technically, we could have called this a list of objects, not a list of line items, but it just worked better when I made them line items.
Okay. So if I don't pass any reference from flow to my component,
you won't get it. You won't get it, yeah. And it can be input and not output, which means that you'll take it, but you'll never be able to give it back. So you have to have both. Okay. Yeah. And that's good, because effectively you're talking about private variable stuff. You're getting it, and it's like a constant. You're not changing it. Yeah. Okay. So let's just show it to you in action. So I've made my 2 products. Let's add a third one. Skyline mouse. These names are brilliant. Where have you got them from?
Salesforce.
Okay, so I have 3 items here, and let's delete the one. Let's delete the one with 10 items. So click on remove, and it's gone. It's purely in JSON. It's gone. The flow is going to pick that up now. And I've added some buttons at the bottom. So let's just show you the buttons at the bottom, because I follow a lot of the release notes for this, and the code in release notes doesn't work, so I have to fix it. Okay. Don't ask. So in my component, with all the list of stuff, I do have a header, which I'll just quickly show you the header. You can see I'm using v.screen help text. I don't have an attribute called that. That's part of the default attributes that the interface gives us. If I go to the flow designer, this screen has where is it? Help text. Here it is down here. So if Jorgan has added help text, I can pick that up. Okay.
You can also settle if you go above, just to show that you've unticked all the basic
buttons.
So you've gotten rid of the footer and the header.
Footer and the header.
Which would have been the default name of the flow, would have been the navigation button for the flow and everything. So we just said we're disabling all of it, we want to do all of this.
So these buttons here are not part of it. Jorgan's flow does not show them. This is actually the component doing it, because I want to override it. Okay. So if we show you that footer, the header, by the way, sorry, I'm going to show you the header, was I have a little icon in here, and it shows the header text. Just a very simple thing, header text, so you can grab it if you want to, and if the administrator changes it, we're reacting straight away. So, nice. Would they give us an actual header text? I'd love to see that, but we don't get that quite yet. So again, these, I think as interfaces will grow, we get more and more things with them, but this is what we get so far. So let's talk about the footer, which is kind of where the real code is of this. So at the bottom, I have a component called cFlowFooter, and I've done a bit of modification to it. I'm passing through the available actions because I want to pass from the parent down to the child what available actions are available. I also want to pass a function. So this is another way that a child component can talk to a parent. Okay, I'll show you in a second how it works. And I've got some labels in here. So I want to relabel some labels, finish, start, whatever. And I've got one called add product. So let's show you what this means. So the finish, so I got one called finish, restart, and add product. I've just renamed them in my, component here. So let's just show you the flow footer so you can see what I mean. Here's the flow footer. These are my attributes. Can I do things which are not populated yet? The available actions which come from the parent. And what I want to do initially is find out what is available. Next, previous, what exactly is available. And I'm using my doing it. So this is my doing it handler for my component. Just runs some code. And here's my initialization here. And it's the code I just showed you on the screen. What currently is available. I'm just setting true or false. So we can use them later on. Then if we keep going, we can see we've got an action button bar. This is all just look and feel stuff here. But I have my button to go back. I'm just floating it left. And I have my button, any buttons that can possibly go forward. So you can see I'm checking to see, can I pause it? Can I click next? Can I click finish? Finish would only be on the last screen. So that's why I'm seeing my label saying next, or in this case, it's finish. And I've added my parent action. So this is my parent action. So this is how we can get another connection happening here. If I go back to my definition, you'll see that most times we pass an attribute across, it's v dot. It's an attribute in the component I'm passing through. But I'm actually passing in c dot here. And c dot is, it's a function. It's a JavaScript function, right? The function is here, it's navigate here, all this function. But I don't want to have to write a component event to call the parent to tell it to run the function. Instead, I can pass the function through as an attribute. Okay? Yeah. Exactly. So how it works, exactly how it works, I'm passing in c dot, which is a reference to the function. And in the child, what I have here is I have a attribute of type or action. See it there? And that relays, if I call that here, so if I click my button, my next button, I'm actually calling v dot. My onClick is calling v dot, which doesn't make much sense, but I'm actually calling the attribute, which in turn calls the function account. So it's another way to talk. So in one way I showed you attribute, this way is a function. Most people think events, but there are other ways to do it. So that's what's happening here. And when I click on my add parent action, what the code is doing is it simply, let's see, where is it's called navigate, yeah. So in my navigation, what I'm doing is I'm clicking it. Have I clicked on next, which is my add product? And what I'm doing is I'm basically getting all the line items, adding whatever I've added to it, and pushing it back out again. Now, in theory, I shouldn't have had to do this. It's quite annoying. This gave us a bug. On Saturday and Sunday, you were working on this, trying to figure out what my bug was, and I eventually figured out on Monday what it was. For some reason, I'll actually show this to you working in a second. I'll show you the error in a minute and why it was so weird. I have clicked my remove here. I'm going to click on finish. And the finish, what it's doing is it's unchecking that. See, it's setting the variable to be false, which Jorgan's flow is picking up as being, I'm done now, make my quote line items. And that, from that point on, Jorgan's flow takes over. So if I click on finish, I should, and this is my alert, I'll show you a second, right? I get my code, just like Jorgan had said, okay? But I only have 2 line items because I've removed one in my component, okay? So you can see now we can plug in components. There's no Apex in that, right? No test code in that. JavaScript and markup, I'm going to do something very powerful that was never possible before in a flow. That you can do this kind of management. Something we had thought about doing, I've got a chance to do it, was that if you selected certain products and some of them had accessories products, we could check that in the override button, do a query, and come back in the component saying, oh, by the way, do you want to add these? Add, and then go and finish the flow. So you can see there's a lot of power in here in components that we can go to a flow and go, okay, now we can make flow to something really cool. And we're already thinking of things we've done in the last 6 months. We're going, put it in the flow, which is really good.
A very stable underlying tool as well.
It's bulk safe. The Process Builder is not.
Right.
It gives decent errors, which Process Builder does not give. Yeah.
Even embed flows in all kinds of places, like on community pages.
But underlying behind Process Builder, underlying is flow.
It's flow.
Yeah.
Didn't do a good job of it.
It's like flow with safety gloves on.
Yeah.
Process Builder.
Yeah. Does that kind of make sense what I'm doing here? All right.
That's great, yeah.
So the code is all there on GitHub. I think that's I wanted to show you on this. Yeah, I want to show you this error, this mad error, and why I got the errors. Yeah.
So, passing method that you showed from the page of the child.
Yes.
Is it only available for the flow, or
No. Any Lightning component. If you've got a function in the parent and you'll pass it to a child, so what you're doing is you're trying to get the child to call the function in the parent, then you just pass it through as an aura action.
so the child you have to mention it as a
Aura action.
right, so just one option. Basically, it's based on the event handling. Right?
No, what's actually happening is that in the JavaScript that renders the component, you're passing the call through. It's not an event. It's direct call from the child HTML JavaScript into the parent JavaScript. It knows to relay the pointer to that function. Eventing is different. Eventing is a platform thing. So when you call an event, things are listening, and that's using the Aura handler and the Aura register event. But this is more of a direct JavaScript thing. It's only really used for child-parent manipulation. And if you're using a lot of data to do a lot of things in Lightning, you're better off using events because the platform is built for that. Using these kind of things is not a trick as such. It's just a way to do some things quickly. That's all. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question, but not specific flow. It's related to Lightning components.
Yeah.
You're talking about interfaces.
Yes.
And that this interface is working to expose the component to different areas of Salesforce.
Yes. And provide attributes.
Yes. Can we have custom interfaces for?
Not yet.
And let's say if I want to have custom interface for my Lightning component, and I want to restrict the access of this Lightning component to different apps which I've created in Salesforce.
Yeah. There is such thing as a Lightning interface. It doesn't work like that. It's more of a template for the working of inside a component. It's not something that's available to certain parts of the platform. That's purely Salesforce's thing. But is there a way that you can stop a component being available to certain things? There is certain examples of that. So in the design part of the component, you can add a way to limit it to certain S objects. So if you have make a homepage, a record homepage, that component won't be available to certain objects. So let's say a template contact and not available to anything else. So you can do that way, so you can manipulate it a bit. But no, the interfaces are strictly a Salesforce platform thing. I haven't heard if they're going to open that up. It would make sense to me that interfaces, Lightning interfaces, will do that job eventually. But I don't know how we can hook it in. There has to be quite a lot of config for us to say, I'm making up interface Barry, and I want it available in these different places and getting these attributes. That isn't there yet. It would be lovely if it was, and I think they will get there, but not yet. I was asked that once before, actually, in the course, and I didn't know. I checked it out. Not quite yet. Not quite yet. Yeah. Just going to show you this error before we get on and talk more about the flow. Okay, I'm going to run the flow again with these alerts on. Hopefully Chrome Clear Cache has worked. Okay, so let's do the same flow. I'm going to add some products, add product, and another one, add product. And what's happening if I click on finish is going to give me some alerts. So give me the, no, of course it didn't. Where's fresh? Did I save it or not? I did save it. It's caching there. Because I always find when you teach people and you realize there's an error somewhere, they find more interest in what the error was because they'll see it themselves eventually. Is that another one? And then hopefully we'll get alerts. Yeah. This is where the error was. For some reason, Jorgan's flow was populating the lines for me. But for whatever reason, the first one was a null. See, the first element in the JSON is null. As soon as I tried to save it, I get a big error. Null. Couldn't save quality because certain fields were missing.
Yeah, when we get to the bottom of the flow, we don't already know we're trying to insert a collection of alignments, and the very first one is null, and everything goes up.
Everything throws up. We had an error. We couldn't figure out what it was. I had assumed it was the flow. You were going to assume it was the code. This is typical. Turns out it was the code, but in a weird way. So the flow was giving me always a null, and what I did in the code was I looped through and removed the null, and that worked. Now, why I had to do that? Well, it's just a weird thing in the code. So if you look at the code and you're wondering, why on earth is Barry looping through everything and stripping out nulls? That's why. Where am I doing? Here I'm checking to see if it is null. So every time I click on remove or add, I'm looking for that null. I'm taking it away. It's a complete pain, but there you go. That's what happened.
In fact, every time you iterated through the collection, it was contributing null again.
Again and
so
again
you
and
notice
again.
if you were, when we got these error messages to my email, you can actually see what's happening, passing through the lightning function flow, and you were seeing it add null every time. Since it's null in the collection, there's only one null, but every time it iterated, null. So there's always nulls part of that nesting.
What would be the email address for that? I'd love to show them that error message, but it was, when was it? Sunday. Yesterday was, when was, yesterday was Monday.
Yeah, you passed it on Friday maybe, you passed it to me Friday or Saturday, I don't know if it's a Sunday.
So I don't know if you can see this. This is one of the errors I got. I think this is the same error. Yeah, there you go. It was kind of some kind of null. But this is the kind of cool thing that Jorgan was carried away with. I didn't know it's time. But in the middle of it, we can see here the lightning component. It tells you what you're passing through and what you're getting back. And there was the null. I'm able to see what I'm assigning, but this is Jorgan's assignment. And then later on, we're seeing the component again, I believe. I have no idea, but anyway, but you can see, yeah. So this is a simple version of it, but you can see the lightning component is here. It tells you it's talking to a component, what its inputs are and what its outputs are. So it actually tells you in debug, which you love. I don't know my head. So there you go. So that's flow. Say again? Yeah, Wyatt fed me no idea. And you couldn't figure out in the flow either why. So do you want me to bring up the flow and you can take us through what you changed for that checkbox to work?
Yeah, what it was we ordered allies that were what I was considering first. But with my flow screen, when I didn't have a collection, you passed that to me. When you uncheck that box, it just created all the records. But when Barry started to pass through the collection instead, I had to actually determine that checkbox first, rather than add something to the collection first. Or whatever screen he was on when he decided to finish, I was getting extra product, even if he wasn't selecting the product, because the product was there to be at. So I was getting the collection, plus the gathering screen, I was always ending up with one more item than intended. So I just switched my decision logic. I started by saying, is Barry done? If he was done, I didn't add that extra thing that was stored in the screen. I just went right to creating records. So I just switched the elements in the loop between his and mine. It's the exact same elements. I just considered them in reverse order.
So even though you had to do some changes, we were able to make a pretty complex lightning component do some stuff for you, and this minimum change I added to your flow without really changing the flow.
We didn't add any variables to the flow, we didn't remove any elements. It's almost identical except for that line reorder.
So you are saying that when the lightning component is released like that, I am never instead.
That's what we think.
So are are you initializing putting default to your line item?
It's possible we haven't, but we only figured out why it was happening. The error was happening yesterday, so we'd love to dig further. We don't know why it happened. It could be something we set up incorrectly, but initial look, it was a default thing that we just got no.
Yes, I'm saying it's not defaulting it, but in the lightning component, whenever it's getting initialized, at that point in time, you're defaulting it to something because usually JavaScript, because that doesn't happen in S object, but JavaScript, if you have an array, whenever you initialize it with a null bank.
Yes.
So I think you're defaulting it to something.
It's a possibility. I just didn't get a chance to go through it, but it's a possibility that I might have given the attribute a default value of blank. That might be it. Could be something else. I just didn't get a chance to go through it more, but for some reason there's a null there. So yeah, but it works. It actually gives him a lot more functionality than he had before. So for example, if he added the same product twice, he would know about it first before you. So as I said, the code is all online. I'm going to show you the resources now. So cameras at the ready. So we've got some resources here. This slide deck is already up on a link, actually on my blog. There's no post, it's just a link. So you guys can photograph this. I'll put this as an image on the chatter and the Twitter later on. The code is in GitHub. It's actually in DX format, but I have the original metadata there as well. I think it's the DX fully working. It's not quite set up in this. This is a bit last minute. You have to fix a few things on settings. It's to do with multi-currency because you have multi-currency enabled in this piece, but we'll figure it out. Developer guide has got some stuff on Flow. A lot of the stuff I took was from that guide and fixing things up and doing an example. The Clint Majors has just released a blog post that Andy Foster retweeted yesterday on this topic, but he doesn't have any code in it. The mass action scheduler was something that came up on our Skype feed yesterday that was cool. Do you want to explain what that is?
Oh gosh, I haven't had a chance to really
play with it yet.
Except to say that you could actually access and schedule to run flows on so Douglas Ayres, who folks are probably familiar with, just created a simple UI where you can call it. Say ever before you couldn't call and run on a schedule flows in that way. And in fact, before Spring 18, you couldn't pause and let flows that were half completed sit and then finish them later. So if you had a more complex flow, like somebody sitting on the phone in the call center taking much of information to a multi-screen wizard, and then they realize, shoot, I need my manager's help to finish this, they can now pause that flow and hand it off to somebody else, call it back later and finish the wizard, and then all the TML's done. So using some of that, Douglas has gone on to build this little mini widget to basically demo some of that new functionality. Yeah.
Previously, this would have been batch Apex something running, or scheduled Apex running the flow. Can't think anymore. And then a few things to notice that Salesforce Ben. Anyone follow Salesforce Ben? He's got someone else starting a series on Flow.
Yeah, just kind of revisiting Flow, probably for the same reason that we're talking about here. We're calling it Love Spring 18. Somebody revisiting Flow, make people more aware of the power of Flow with all these enhancements. Yeah, so it's a web series. They're going to be going through a couple of different videos in the next few months.
So if you're like me and haven't used much Flow before, I'll be looking at this to get started again, kind of thing. There's another one, Automation Champion, which is the one you would go to. His intro to Flow, I think, is who you would more recommend.
Yeah, definitely. So I recommend Automation Champion to clients who are trying to leverage Flow, absolutely, because it's such a great repo for tons of pre-built flows and walks you through the use cases for each of the flow, and then business logic is great. So walks you through the use cases for the flow, and then how you actually build the flow and so on, and there's great screenshots there and everything. So it's a great resource for kind of just roughing out all the different applications that Flow seems to use.
And this slide deck was put together 5 minutes before we started this, so there's just been a blog post from the developer evangelists on Flow for Spring 18, and there's a new Trailhead badge that we don't know when it appeared. We're going to take credit for it and say it's this evening, but we don't know.
It must be brand new. Yeah, it really must be brand new, because everything they're talking about, there's 5 sub-units within this trail, and everything they're talking about was
what we were talking about
before Spring 18. So yeah, it's really exciting.
So it's a good badge to go through if you want to kind of rehash what's here. That's it. Hope that was of use. Thanks, Jorgan, very much, because you spent a lot of time with this. It's very good. I just plugged a bit in at the end. So. That's what it's mainly you.
Well, I think it's interesting, we've spent a lot of time over the past few months where clients have asked us to make mobile-ready components. And making mobile-ready components, at least say in and around release of Spring 18, was still quite immature. And now with object-specific actions that can launch flow and you can convert to standard wizards, you can get around a lot of the hacky stuff that we were still kind of waiting to a green field that wasn't available before, using a much more stable solution and getting the same kind of power from the mobile device.
Yeah.
It's just another option, another tool for the toolkit.
Any other questions? Any questions? Let's see if we can answer them all. So, thanks very much. So, Apereo, 10th of April. If you guys want to have a presentation to talk about Apereo, it's no problem. Hopefully Mike behind you will be able to help us as well, and then we'll see what swag comes. But we'll get a few things. We have a couple of things we might be able to talk about too. We do, yeah. Yeah. And we have, it's, what time is it? 20 to 9. If people, I know I asked this the last day and I never give anyone a place to put stuff. But has everyone got a meetup? They've got access to send messages. If you'd like, one of the sessions I'd like to do, we've done this before in the summertime, is have an open mic kind of a night. You're invited to present for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something small. I know people come here a lot and usually the same people come over and talk. Have a think about it and let me know what you might like to talk about. This group has never been about any one company. It's more, but we don't try to show anyone's work kind of thing. So, but if there's something interesting on the work and you want to do a demo of it, or something you found that was interesting, or even if there's a couple of topics you'd like to know more about and want to come up here and say, I'd love to know more about that, does anyone want to give me a hand? It'd be great. And we're still, KL is not here tonight, but I'm going to contact him about this. The helping of the non-for-profit is probably going to be a Saturday, probably, because we need some time to help them. And we're also in talks at the moment to have a joint meet-up with the Ireland Music Group at some stage in the summer. So there's a few things in mind, but nothing planned yet. So anyone has anything they want to talk about in May, June, or July, let me know. Or your company wants to present. Okay.
Sure, thank you.
And take a donut,
Yeah.
take beer, whatever.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Might if we know that more interesting, we would submit them on this holiday, but we didn't know at the time that it was going to be of any interest. This would be good.
So huge amount of possibilities.
We'll submit it for the world tour, but it's pity we had this a month ago. We don't
And then May in London.
Sorry?
We have policy the one in May in London.
London World Tour, yeah. I don't care who hears it.
Anyways, thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.